Yeah, on Kufain base, the second full paragraph, that's the one starting with the word Maaseh. Maaseh ba'adam echad. So this is Orchot Tzaddikim. You're familiar with the Sefer. We don't know who the author of Orchot Tzaddikim is. It was written anonymously, and we really don't know who it was. But given the sources that he quotes and the ones that he doesn't, we kind of more or less can extrapolate that it was somebody who was living in Eretz Yisrael, maybe among Chochmei Tzfas, approximately in the year 1500, in the 1500 somewhere. Based on who he quotes and who he doesn't, we know who his predecessors were and who he precedes. So, but other than that, I don't think we know who the author of Orchot Tzaddikim was, and it's of course a collection of essays on different midos, usually in pairs, positive and negative. This one is on flattery, and we're approaching the end of it then. And let's start the paragraph starting with the word Maaseh. Maaseh ba'adam echad kosher. There was an event, a story, an occasion that occurred with a certain person. He was a kosher person. He had a daughter who he was interested in getting married and marrying her off. And there were two people there. Each one was interested in marrying this person's daughter. The kosher one, meaning the father of the daughter, what he did was he asked somebody to make some type of a fight, an argument with him. And then he took these two people, these two potential suitors for his daughter, to negotiate, try to find some compromise, reconciliation between himself and this person who was his fictitious foe. And this is what they did. The one was flattering, meaning he was finding favor, although there was no justification to do so, in the father of the daughter, who's being a potential suitor. He wanted to find favor in his prospective father's-in-law's eyes. And he found favor and merit, find ways of deciding on his behalf throughout the argument. But the other one said, you're wrong, your friend is right. So this potential suitor, despite the fact that he was risking upsetting this man and therefore losing his daughter's hand in marriage, as it were, nevertheless told him the truth as it is. And it turned out that he actually gave his daughter's hand in marriage to the one who was truthful and straightforward. He said, this is a good guy. Because he didn't flatter me, he didn't act in this obsequious way, and he didn't show me favoritism just because he was interested in my daughter's hand in marriage. So, it's kind of a simple story, a pretty straightforward tale, but when we try and translate it more into reality or the type of real-life scenarios that we're likely to encounter, you see that we're presented with this type of challenge all of the time. Right? What's a little compliment going to hurt? And what difference does it make if I smooth out the truth a little bit? Yeah. In the end of the day, I'll benefit from it. He'll benefit from it. Everybody will be happy. Right? Mm-hmm. And we kind of delude ourselves into thinking that this type of behavior is acceptable because ultimately we think that acting this way is going to secure for us the things that we want. Because that's how we think. I'll butter the guy up. I'll get the job. And we don't really stop to think about the fact that if this person was really setting us up, he would see through with what we're doing like that. And it would be immediately apparent to us that rather than finding favor in this person's eyes, we would actually look ugly in that person's eyes. So since that's the truth, even if this person knew it, then that should bolster us and strengthen us actually to be straightforward and tell the truth and be honest. Number one. Number two, right? I think there's an analogy here in the story as well. Because it's Kadosh Baruch Hu, right, the Balabas, the father, the daughter, like he knew what was going on, right? And it turned out that the one who was rewarded was the one who was acting straight, and not the one who thought that by acting crooked he'd get what he wants. And so here too as well, Kadosh Baruch Hu sees through all of this. He cuts through all of the nonsense. And we might think that we're going to get what we want if we act in this type of a secret manner. But Kadosh Baruch Hu knows exactly that that's not the case. It's ultimately to give the person who deserves it and withhold it from the person who doesn't.
What if the Khalifa is true?
Oh, so if the Khalifa is true,
it's false. What if it's
yeah. So if the Khalifa is true, then I don't think that would be, just by definition, I'm not sure that would be called Hanifus. We've been discussing that, that kind of question has come up a few times so far. I don't think that would be considered Hanifus. Hanifus is when you are either telling a mistruth or you're presenting something to be acceptable when it really isn't, and the whole purpose is just to manipulate this person to get something from you you really want. Complimenting a person,
in order to get?
now, if you compliment in order to get, so that's also a form of Hanifus, but I think that would take the compliment to be, that would make the compliment into Hanifus again.
Even if it's true.
But let's say if he's telling the person, let's say he's complimenting the person about, I'm just saying, just raising the question about whether that would be Hanifus or not. But let's just take the actual question. If you are saying something, you're praising a person truthfully about attributes that they really have or good things that they really do. So if you're doing so to get something out of the person, that would also be unacceptable. Because you're not being honest, you're not being genuine. Even though you're telling the truth, you're not being genuine. That doesn't mean to say that there's nothing wrong with telling a person a compliment, right? If it's true, and if it's generally in the context considered to be civilly proper, right, to say a nice word to a person, comment about his, this or that or the other, that would be okay. Even in business dealings, for example, everybody's in it to get something out of it. And he's been asking, what would be the boundaries for expressing compliments in a business setting, where a priori everybody's there to get something out of it. So nearly everything that's said there is said in that context. And a compliment then can clearly turn into something which is more like Hanifus. But it seems to me that again, if people go into the business deal knowing that everybody's trying to get something out of it, and that's accepted. Everybody understands that that's what they're there for. And if it's considered in that context to be civil and polite and pleasant to say nice things, that would also be acceptable. But if a person goes overboard, right, and it becomes exaggerated and just unappealing, that's already right.
Every fundraising dinner, there's the honoree sitting on the side, and the MC is just lauding and complimenting that's an entire event of Isser.
It's it's not pashut at all. Clearly, everybody does it, and you're allowed to exaggerate a little bit. But if people are exaggerating too much, Hanifas. When a person is lo lein, a person is nifter, you're also allowed to exaggerate the good deeds of the person, and even if they're and all the more so if they're living and they've really done a good deed. So it's kind of like a child who does something good. So you exaggerate the degree of the significance of that deed in order to encourage that behavior. So here a gvir is given money, so it's not Hanifus. It's considered showing him respect, admiration, and appreciation for the fact that he really did a good deed. And yes, you're also encouraging him and others to want to emulate that. Within measure, that's acceptable.
Fine line.
Yeah, but there's a fine line. Exactly, there's a very fine line. The whole event of the dinner is the whole idea behind the dinner is Hanifus. But it's kilo. That's why they usually try to be metabel. Chachamim speak divrei Torah, so it really should be in a seifa, chachamim. It should be like a drasha. So there happens to be an element of, let's say, the financial aspect. So when I attend, and if I have anything to do with running the tribe events, it would be my approach, and that's probably why I'm not chosen as a fundraiser. But it would be my approach to have it more Torah and less money. Usually it's the other way around. It's more, the food is metubel with a little bit of Torah instead of the Torah being metubel with food. And then they have the prizes and the gadgets, all the different things that they hand out and all of that stuff. It's a big hype. It's a problem. But in any case, as long as it's with proper decorum and in a respectful, decent way, with a certain limit to it, so that can be acceptable. We did speak, by the way, in a previous section, that's a mitzvah to be machnif one's wife or one's children. Without going into too much detail, but that a person should praise his wife, even exaggerate her praise, even say things which are not true, in order to make her feel good, make her feel happy, and even though he's getting something out of that, which is shalom bayis. Yeah, yeah. And the same thing with the children. Like we mentioned earlier, to exaggerate their praise and to shower upon them love and attention and so forth and so on. Ultimately, because that's going to raise that, even though you're going to get something out of that, which is going to have hopefully Yiddish nachas from your kids. But in those cases, you're allowed to do that. What's the pshat there? Maybe l'tzorch shalom bayis, l'tzorch chinuch habanim. These are l'tzorch mitzvah gedolah. Maybe the same thing with the dinners. It's for the purposes. It's for the betterment of Torah. It's true. Generally speaking, in all the different cases of Hanifas here, he's been speaking about Hanifas to Rishoyim. But Hanifas to, let's say, the wife, the children, we saw to the rabbis, to the students, that's all permitted. So we haven't really, we haven't really emphasized this point, but he's asking, a very good question. Maybe this is a chiluk, maybe this is a distinction. That the real forbidden types of chanifas that we're talking about is when you're smearing on to wicked people, either to deflect potential harm that might come from them, or to get some good from them, or as a tacit way of approving of what they do, and so forth and so on. But to do chanifas, l'tzorach mitzvah, the shalom bayis, the chinuch habanim, or the Torah, like we saw, machnif the person's rabbi or his students, maybe that type of thing is permitted.
But there's whole stories with Tzaddikim and Tanoim that went to try to save the Churban Beis Hamikdash by Rabbi Zakkai when he was snuck out and he did chanifas and to try to save the Jewish people. So
you see, it was permitted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's for Rishonim also. They did for Rishonim.
Yeah.
That's okay. So the may be different. It's saving.
So that could be different. Or it could be that the Rishonim that we also discussed, about the possibility there being a difference between a Jewish Russia and a non-Jew. Right, a Jewish Russia who's being over on the mitzvahs Hashem la'achis is somebody that you can't do hanifas to. He's elaborated on because you give this person the sense that he's good, he's okay, or at least he's not as bad as he really is, or giving the impression that other people that they can also do it and get away with it, and all of these things. But it could be that it's different regarding stam and non-Jew, a goy, even if that goy is a Russia. But I would still say that probably the major chiluk in your scenario, the one that you're raising, is probably pikuach nefesh.
So I have that question all the time. I'm a business. I have clients coming in, and be a Friday client, and he would say about something that he does. I don't do what you do. He would say, but I do this, and I do this, which is so very not just a low level, but it's reform, and I don't know how to respond. Do I say, it's okay, because I want to keep the business? Or
sometimes
do I just keep quiet, or do I say that's really not right? Take my position. If I take my position, I'll be derech hateva, I lose the client.
I tell you what.
Is that the time to become the preacher? Or
definitely.
Stay quiet.
Definitely not. I mean, you're not the person's Rabbi. You don't have a chiyuv l'chora to do teichacha, but. So very often, I say most often, if you can let it slide, let it slide. It's just an off comment. It's really not part of really what you're discussing. But if it becomes a major part, if it's not major, but if it becomes anyway a significant part of the conversation, so then you kind of have to deal with it. I personally would say something like, my father always told me the three things you never talk about: religion, politics, and whatever it is. The third thing is. So it was certainly my intention to get into a religious discussion with you, but I would say that. We are all on a spiritual path towards growth, and the main thing is that we should continue trying, exploring, and learning more. So now, what was that figure that yeah? So in other words, what you're saying to the person, I'm not going to get into a discussion with you about religion, But like yourself, I am also on a path of spiritual searching, and the main thing is that we should be directing our attention towards growth. So let him understand that the way he does. But I think he would get the point that there's always more to do, myself included. So I'm not being confrontational.
Sometimes I just get the attacks. Oh, those black hats! They drive me crazy.
People say that. Yeah. Well, listen. It certainly doesn't say in the Torah that you have to wear a black hat. It's not really, it's not really the black hat, but what's underneath. And let's hope that even people who wear black hats are trying to be better people. And leave it at that.
Okay, good.
It's true. Like you're not flattering the person, and you're not agreeing with the person. You're actually opening up the possibility for disagreement. But doing it in a way which kind of deflects the argument and leaving it open like food for thought. Yeah? Isn't it to say anywhere in the Torah, thou shalt wear a black hat? Yeah? What? Yeah. People wear the black suits. Yeah, but the shirts are white. And that's another one I tried. Yeah. Oh, they wear such dark clothing. You ever see their undergarments? Yeah? So you just want to pass it off. Pass it off. L'chen, mishu, so he says therefore, l'chen, mishu parnes, o dayan, o gabay tzedakah, therefore a person who is a ruler, a leader of the community, or a dayan, a judge, or a gabay tzedakah, somebody who collects the charity on behalf of communal needs, tzarich shelo yeh chonef, he has to work very hard not to be a chonef, not to butter up different types of people. Ki im yachnif parnas l'shum adam, if the leader of the community is doing this type of flattery with anybody, v'lo yochichehu la'asoi satov v'lasur min hara, and he doesn't, because he's in the position of being a leader, doesn't chastise, he doesn't point out to people what they're to do right or refrain from doing wrong, then the whole community is ultimately going to be infested with evil and wrongdoing, because he never points out. Everybody will say, look how the leader of the community never rebukes him. Why? Because he's got money, or because he's got political power, and so forth and so on. And therefore other people won't receive his rebuke. You're just rebuking me because I don't have money, or because I don't have political power. You're basically undermining, this person would be undermining his authority by being selective, who he rebukes and who he doesn't. Anybody who he rebukes, of course, he should do it in a way which is going to be easiest for the person to receive the rebuke. And there he might make a distinction between different types of personalities. He might rebuke some people in some ways and other people in another way. But the main thing, he's trying to point out to people that we all need to improve. But if some he does this to and others not at all, then he's undermining his authority. V'chen dayan, and so to a judge, hamachnif lechad mibalei dinim, who might be flattering, meaning trying to appease or find favor, find some kind of a way of finding schus for one of the people who is engaged in the judgment. Az yistatmu divrei hasheni, when the other person sees this favoritism, his words will become bottled up. V'lo yeda liton kasher roilo, and he won't be able to make claims as is befitting. Why? Because he's flustered to the fact that this judge is showing favoritism, and ultimately that's going to result in a misjudgment. Nimsa shelo yetzeh hadin lamito. The din Torah will not be true. V'chen gabay tzedakah hamachnifin, and so too those who collect charity for the communal needs. V'itanu tzedakah lezeh hamachnif lehem, and he gives charity to the ones who butter him up. O shehem machnifim lo, v'itanu lo, afim enu roi lekach, and because of this he'll give him more than others, or he'll give him even though he's not deserving of it. So all types of injustices can result as a result, can occur as a result of this type of chanifus. And therefore, a righteous person has to be very careful to distance himself from this type of chanifus. Let's say you're in a teaching position, and the dynamics in the classroom, let's say, are such that some students are generally more alert, more involved, more interested, and others are less. So clearly from an educational point of view, one should try and encourage and continue to fuel the interest in the ones who are interested in learning, but not to the detriment of the ones who are not. So you'd actually have to make a special effort to try and to inspire the ones who are less interested. So even if it means sometimes kind of holding aside the good points or the interest of the ones who are, let's say, more actively involved in the class. So the same thing applies if you have people who are, or the more so it should apply if you have people in the class who are really just, or a major reason why they're involved is because they want to butter up the rabbi or butter up the teacher in order to get his attention or to get recognition or to get something else they perceive they're going to get out of it. Like maybe he's in shidduchim and he wants the rabbi to give him good recommendations. And then you have other people who are, let's say, less oriented in that direction, either because they're not there in life or because they don't need anything special, or they're just more, let's say, maybe they have more scruples in those areas than the others. And they're less actively involved. So there too, the rabbi should make a point of paying attention to those people. Right? Right?
So who's doing the Isser? When it says, "V'chein gabei tzedakah, hamachnifim v'hitnu tzedakah, zeh hamachnef lehem."
Yeah.
So is the gabei tzedakah doing an Isser, or it's the one who did the chanifa?
I think, here the author here is saying that the Gabbai Tzedakah, for example, together with the Dayan and the Parnas, have to be careful, be careful about other people's being machnif them, because through that they might do things which are unacceptable. Like, for example, not leading the community properly, and therefore lowering the quality of the community, or the Dayan by giving into it. And a person has to be careful because, of course, it's our tendency to overlook people's shortcomings, to don people the kav zchus. So if you see somebody being machnif you, well, I'm not going to hold it against him. But in the meantime, he does it again and again and again, and everybody's subject to getting buttered up. And before you know it, so it could very well be that this is a scenario where a person should not be too liberal about being don the kav zchus. And sometimes if I'm in that situation and somebody starts loading on the compliments or something like that, my response is thank you very much. I might have told this to somebody. You might have heard me say this before. Thank you very much for the compliment. I'll try not to take it to heart. Yeah. There's a famous story about what's that? Famous story about one of the Talmidei Baal Shem Tov. I think it was Rav Nachman Mihardanka, who was sitting together at a tish of the Baal Shem, together with all of the other Talmidim, the Hasidim. And at some point in the middle of the drasha, the Baal Shem Tov started complimenting Rav Nachman, who was sitting at the end of the table, in front of everybody. And people started looking around at Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman kind of gets up and his ears are perked. And the Baal Shem Tov keeps heaping praises on him and so forth and so on. And the more the Baal Shem speaks in his behalf, Rav Nachman gets up from his place and he sits closer and closer and closer until he's kind of sitting right next to the Rebbe, trying to go like this next to the Rebbe's mouth. And there's the Talmidim that couldn't believe what was going on here. They thought he was a humble person, and here he's just wallowing and lavishing all of this praise that the Baal Shem is heaping upon him. And when the Baal Shem got things really hot and he saw everybody's curiosity was perked here, he said, you should know, he doesn't hear a word that I'm saying. He's davened his entire life that he shouldn't see, hear, taste, smell anything which is harmful to him. So he can't even hear the praise that I'm praising him because it would be harmful to his neshama. And that's why he's coming closer and closer. Yeah? He thought I was speaking Divrei Torah, and he wanted to hear. He couldn't understand why I wasn't hearing it, but it was because I was giving praise. So yes, we have to be very careful to distance ourselves and not take to heart certainly anything which would be hanifus. That doesn't mean to say that we can't be aware of our strengths, and if we're not quite sure what they are, or could benefit from hearing other people's kind of take on what our talents are, you certainly can do that. Right, if it can help you be a better Elved Hashem. But Hanifos, no.
What is the problem with Sheker? What is the root?
It seems that it is about a sheker and emes, because this chapter comes right on the heels of those two chapters, emes and sheker, and it's a form of sheker. Midvar sheker tirchak. And it's a specific form of sheker which is insidious because the person's really doing it just to use and manipulate the person to get something out of it. And it can take an even more subtle form when he feels that ultimately the person who he is being machnif is also getting something out of it. So why not? Everybody benefits. No, it's sheker. V'hagruah shebekol hachanifus. What's worse about all of this chanifus, hamachnif lechaveroi kedei lahachtioi, somebody who flatters his friend with the intention, of not just getting some personal gain out of it, but to cause that person to sin. Kagon sheyesh lo machlokesim v'nei adam, ve'ein edinim imo, like he's got arguments, disputes with people, and he knows he's wrong. And he is machnif people to help them with the intention of their helping him and strengthening him in his mistaken ways. Or somebody who's running after averos, like sexual immorality and other types of prohibitions. And he flatters his friend in order for him to do like he does. So this guy's decided that he's going to do a little night seder outside of the yeshiva in a local bar or in a dance club or something. And, he goes once or twice, but he feels kind of bad about it. So, he wants to feel like he's got a friend, the pasuk says, a friend in evil. But he can't really think of anybody who would be willing to do this. But there's one guy who's like maybe a little off. So he says to him, starts complimenting him, you're a good-looking guy, you just dress up a little bit differently, there's some ladies over there, be interested. And he knows that the guy is not really the ladies' man type, but he kind of butters the guy up, and so he dresses him up, he puts cologne on him, and before you know it, he takes him to... But he's really just doing it because he needs company and wants to feel less bad about being the only one, But he makes this guy into like John Travolta or something, when he's not a ladies' man at all. The purpose is just to get him out and do something wrong so he's not the only one. L'chen Yeravam ben Nevat zocha lemelucha b'shvil shelo hechnif l'shloimoi v'hoichicho al inyan binyan miloi. There's the king, Yeruvam ben Nevat. He merited kingship, even though that kingship was, I think it was talking about he was a Melech Israel. Not Melech Judah. But he merited this kingship. Why? Because he wouldn't butter up Shlomo. He wouldn't flatter King Solomon. And he rebuked him over this matter of Binyan Milo. Does anybody know what that's referring to, the Binyan Milo? It's good. Apparently, King Solomon was involved in some questionable act here involving the Binyan Milo. I'm not sure what that is. And Yeravam, he actually rebuked Shlomo because of his misuse of the kingship, and as a result of that, he himself gained kingship. Somebody who wants to be spared, be saved from these pitfalls of Hanifus, he should be very careful to distance himself from kavod, from seeking honor. Because a person who's not looking for kavod will not have a need to do Hanifa. He's not interested in being in a position of favor that he's going to have a need to show people favor. I heard of a situation recently where there was a shidduch being made, and one side, the side of the kala, was taking a little bit of time to decide whether to go through with the shidduch or not. The suffix might have had to do with the level of learning of the boy, of the bacher. And the father of the boy is considered to be somewhat respected in learning and so forth and so on. But he's not apparently the type of person that makes a big issue of that type of a thing. And so that didn't really enter into the family's consideration about whether they should go with the shidduch or not, this boy's being from a Torah family or not. Finally, they made the shidduch. And at some point, the Kala's father said to the father of the bacher something like, if I had known that the boy's father was such a Talmid Chacham, I would have made a decision a lot more sooner. But so the way I got the story was like the father of the father of the boy said something like, it's a very good thing that you didn't know, because this way you chose the boy for the boy's right. Right? You're not marrying a mechutin. Right? Your daughter is marrying the bacher. So this is an example. Right? You could have a scenario where a person is interested in promoting his Torah studies and his Torah's accomplishments and so forth and so on, attracting good shidduchim for his children, and his children are getting shidduchim which they might not be getting on their own right, or which therefore might not be right for them. Or the children might feel like whatever they get, it's really kilu in the merit of the father, in the shadow of the father, and not really of their own right. But a person who's kilu more, what's the word I'd be looking for? Let's say less, is more unassuming. Would be spared from these types of things because kavod is not an issue by him. So things go more smoothly, in a way. A person also has to be careful not to derive benefit from other people. Ki rov hamachnifim machnif livnei adam shesvurim sheyelem hana mihem. Because most of the times that people do this flattery, it's because of their perception that they're going to get some tangible benefit out of it. And therefore, if you're not the type of person who wants to derive benefit from other people, or you work on trying to avoid taking things from other people, then that's going to be a safeguard against hanifas as well. Because your point of view is not really what you can get out of other people, but rather what you being satisfied with what you've got. L'chen, Misha misrachek mi'elu shnei dvarim, person who distances himself from the desire for honor and the desire to benefit from other people, hana v'kavod, these two things, nitzol mikama averos, he will be spared from several transgressions. Kikama b'nei adam oisim masim tovim kidei shikablu kavod b'nei adam, because there are plenty of people who do good deeds just because they want to get the honor and the recognition from other people. V'zeh inyan mekalkel kol avodas adam, and this intention ruins a person's avodas Hashem, because he's really not doing it to serve Hashem, he's doing it to serve himself. His mitzvahs therefore become self-serving. He's not learning Torah or davening in order to serve Hashem, he's doing it in order to serve himself, to get some honor and recognition out of it. So here he's not really doing it lishma at all. He's doing it only for himself. I had a discussion. It was interesting. I had this discussion with my son-in-law just over Shabbos. Just this point. My understanding was more like you're suggesting, which is that it's acceptable to do something even if you don't have the right intention, because even through the wrong intention, you'll get to the right intention, right? So say, for example, you're learning Torah to get honor, but the Torah's power is such that through learning it, one will ultimately get to learning lishma. And he said, the Zohar says that that's not the case. The distinction between lo lishma and lishma is something much higher than that. Something much, much higher than that. So he said that he taught it according to the Zohar, my understanding is incorrect. And, that might fit in with what's being said here. But still, I might make the distinction that if he's doing the mitzvah just to get the honor, so that's not the lo lishma that we're talking about. The lo lishma that we would be talking about is a person, he believes in Hashem, and he believes that the Torah is Torah Hashem. and he believes that learning Torah is a good thing. But his primary motivation for doing so is not for any of those reasons right now. It's in order to get the kavod. So there is a degree of lishma in his learning, which will be the foundation stone upon which we'll build lishma. But if he is not interested in Hashem, he's not interested in the Torah, he doesn't even think Torah study is a good thing. But he's very pragmatic about recognizing that he's in a culture where people do believe in God, believe the Torah comes from God, believe that Torah study is a good thing. So he'll go through the motions just for the kavod. Maybe that's what we're talking about here. That's mekakol kol avodas Hashem. What's that?
It's only when it's only for kavod.
Yeah.
There's no connection to it otherwise.
Yeah, maybe that would be the taich. Because there are plenty of people who do good deeds and they daven, and they got a nice voice, and he's thinking, he's got a lot of kavana during his tefillah. But what's his kavana? Kama koli arevhu. What a beautiful voice I have. Wow. That's his kavana. And people listen to me and they're enjoying it. It's a famous story, I think, about Rabbi Yitzchak of Berdichev, who appointed somebody to daven at the Amud, be the Shlich Tzibur. So he davened to Amud, as they say in Yiddish, he's davening to the Amud, and he's praying and davening, and his voice is going up and down and everything else. And after, he's feeling very good about himself, and after the davening, he went to the Rabbi and he said, "No, how'd you like the way I davened to the Amud?" And the Rabbi said to him, "That's exactly what you did. You davened to Amud. You were davening to the Amud. You weren't davening to Hashem. You were davening to the pedestal of prayer which you placed yourself upon." This is the way of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara does this with all of the mitzvahs to cause a person to fall in his nets. So that the deed should not be l'shem shamayim. That being said, even if there is the ingredient of lishma, from which there may sprout a greater degree of shma, so that we would say, still on the way, a lot of damage can be done. By the time, until he does get lishma. The same thing with hana. A person who derives benefit from others, even if he sees him transgressing all types of transgressions, he won't be able to rebuke him. Number one, because he feels beholden to him, his having received all of this good from him. And number two, out of fear of not continuing to receive that good. And that's very bad. He'll be concerned that he won't be able to derive any more benefit from him. The Gemara discusses the difference between Elisha and Shmuel. I think the Gemara says, Harotze lehenos yehene ka Elisha, Harotze shelo lehenos lo yehene ka Shmuel. The Gemara might say it the other way around. It might bring Shmuel before Elisha. But the point is that a person who wants to derive benefit from other people can find a precedent for doing so from Elisha. Why? Elisha received the hospitality of this woman who saw that the prophet Elisha was traveling around the countryside and so forth and so on a regular basis. She said to her husband, "Let's make a little room. Let's make a little room for him with a table and a bed and a lamp." Yeah. And he accepted. He accepted this offer of hospitality, and he went by them all the times on his journey that he stayed there regularly. Ultimately, it was pointed out to him that they didn't have children. He prayed on their behalf, and they had a child. It's a very interesting story that happened there. I'm sure you're familiar with it, one of the Haftarahs. But as opposed to Elisha, Shmuel, it says he went around the countryside with his vessels at hand on his wagon, and he didn't use anything that belonged to anybody. He always brought only what he needed, and he didn't take from anybody else. And therefore, these are two approaches. The one is to accept benefit from other people. The other is to refuse benefit from other people. Both have precedent and it could be that both approaches are applicable for each person, but you have to decide when it's appropriate to do so and when not. Shmuel was consistently one way, and Elisha consistently perhaps another. Both approaches are acceptable, therefore, for us, but you have to know when to do them. Okay. I think we should stop here in order to let you guys set up for the next class.